Michelle Morris's hand was still on Frederick Warrington's chest when the entire ballroom went deadly still. She hadn't planned to kiss him. She planned to slip back into the kitchen, finish her shift, and forget what she'd overheard in the East Garden. But when she saw his fiancée lift her champagne glass toward Frederick for the midnight toast, the same glass Michelle had watched a man in a black coat pour something into 30 seconds earlier, her body moved before her mind could stop it. She crossed the marble floor, took the vampire king's face in her hands, and kissed him like the world was ending, because his was. Before we continue, let us know in the comment section what time it is and where you are watching from. And remember to like and subscribe because tomorrow I have saved something extra special for you, and I don't want you to miss it. Now let's continue. The ballroom erupted. 200 guests on their feet, some hissing, others frozen in shock. Erin's hand trembled, champagne sloshing in her glass like liquid guilt. Frederick's hand locked around Michelle's wrist, ice cold. His eyes bled from silver to black. You have 5 seconds to give me one reason you're still breathing. Michelle pressed the crumpled napkin into his palm, her pulse hammering against his frozen fingers. The midnight toast is poisoned, monk's hood extract. She planned this with the man in the black coat by the East Garden. Check it. His grip tightened. Who are you? The server you hired 6 weeks ago. Michelle's voice didn't shake. It should have. And your fiancé just tried to poison you in front of all your guests. Frederick's jaw clenched. His eyes dropped to the napkin, then snapped to Erin. The temperature in the room plummeted. That's when the screaming really started. Erin moved fast. Faster than human. Her peach gown swept across the floor like spilled wine. She's insane, Frederick. She's been obsessed with you since the first event briefing. I've seen the way she watches you. Frederick raised one finger. The entire room went silent. He turned to his bride-to-be. Your champagne, Erin. Why aren't you drinking it? Erin's foundation couldn't hide what color she had left draining from her face. This is ridiculous. Our engagement party. Frederick moved like smoke. 1 step, and he had her wrist. 2 seconds, and he had the glass. He didn't drink it. He didn't need to. Frederick's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen, then at Erin. My security just detained a man in the East Wing carrying monk's hood extract. His voice was ice. The same poison in your champagne glass. He's confessing everything right now. Erin went white. Your lover's very talkative, Erin. The plan. The timeline. Your promises about my throne. Frederick, please. You're going to watch me collapse during my speech. Let him discover my body. Play grieving widow to the council. He turned to his head of security without breaking eye contact with her. Escort her out. Keep the ring. Call the High Council. Frederick, I love you. But he was already walking toward Michelle. Michelle made it 3 steps past the kitchen doors before a hand closed around her wrist. Not rough. Not threatening. Just inevitable. Running. Frederick's voice was quiet. Too quiet for someone who just dismantled an assassination plot in front of 200 witnesses. Michelle didn't turn around. My shift ended. I'm going home. To your studio apartment on 7th Street? The one with the fire escape and the broken lock you keep meaning to fix. Her blood went cold. How do you? I know everything about the people who work for me. He released her wrist but didn't step back. And now Erin knows everything about you too. Michelle finally looked at him. His silver eyes had returned, but something predatory still lurked beneath the surface. She's gone. Your security took her. To a holding cell, she'll be released from within 48 hours. Frederick's jaw tightened. The council will demand a formal investigation. Evidence. Testimonies. Legal process. And Erin has powerful family who'll argue she was framed. She wasn't framed. She tried to kill you. I know. You know. But politics require proof, and proof takes time. He shifted slightly, blocking her path to the exit. Time she'll use to silence the only witness who can testify against her. Michelle's hands curled into fists. So, what I just hide? You accept protection. My penthouse. My security. My resources. His voice dropped lower. Let me keep you safe. Every instinct Michelle had spent years honing screamed at her to refuse. Accepting help meant owing someone. Owing someone meant giving them power. And she'd sworn never to be powerless again. I can take care of myself. Against a vampire family with 3 centuries of influence and absolutely no conscience. Frederick tilted his head. You're brave, Michelle. But you're human. That apartment has windows. Aaron has friends who don't need invitations. The weight of it settled on her chest. He was right. She knew he was right. How long? Until the council makes their ruling. 2 weeks. Maybe 3. Michelle looked past him toward the exit, toward her careful, quiet, safe little life. The one she'd built specifically to avoid moments like this. I don't want to owe you. You don't owe me anything. You saved my life. Something flickered across his expression. Something almost vulnerable. Let me return the favor. She shouldn't say yes. Every survival instinct told her to run. But running only worked if you had somewhere safe to run to. 2 weeks, Michelle said finally. Then I disappear. Frederick's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile. 2 weeks. He was already planning to change her mind. She was already planning her escape. Frederick's penthouse occupied the entire 42nd floor and felt more like a museum than a home. Everything was slate gray and chrome, glass and sharp edges. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, like a throne room overlooking subjects. The furniture looked expensive enough that Michelle was afraid to sit on it. Your room is down the hall. Second door on the left. Frederick set her single duffel bag, everything she'd been allowed to pack, on the marble floor. Private bathroom. The closet has basics if you need anything. Michelle nodded, already cataloging exits. Windows didn't open. 1 elevator. Emergency stairs behind a keycard lock. 2 weeks. She could survive 2 weeks anywhere. We should establish boundaries. She crossed her arms. I stay out of your way. You stay out of mine. I'm not a guest. I'm not whatever this looks like. What does it look like? Like I owe you. Frederick's expression didn't change. You don't. But if it makes you feel better, we'll call it witness protection. He moved toward the kitchen, all black granite and understated wealth. I work from home mostly. My office is off limits. The rest is shared space. Security will escort you anywhere you need to go. I have a job. You have a leave of absence. Paid. Non-negotiable. Michelle's jaw tightened. I don't want your money. It's not mine. It's the event company's liability insurance. He pulled open the refrigerator, scanning contents with the focus of someone performing a task rather than actually looking. You were injured in the line of duty. Technically. I wasn't injured. Traumatic event. Same paperwork. He paused, then pulled out a container. Do you drink tea? The shift in conversation threw her. What? Tea. I had my assistant stock a few varieties. I wasn't sure what you'd prefer. Michelle stared at him. At the vampire king standing in his sterile kitchen holding a tin of chamomile like it was a normal thing for him to care about. I'm fine. That's not what I asked. Earl Grey, she said finally, hating that she answered. If you have it. I do now. Over the next 3 days, Michelle learned to navigate the cold perfection of Frederick's world. She kept to her room mostly, venturing out only when she was certain he was locked in his office. But she noticed things. The way her favorite tea appeared in the cabinet without comment. The thermostat adjusted to exactly 70 degrees. The temperature she'd mentioned once in passing was comfortable. books on the coffee table that matched the ones she'd been reading on her phone, a blanket that appeared on the couch after she'd curled up there one evening. Small things, thoughtful things, things that felt dangerously like caring. "You don't have to do this," Michelle said one evening when Frederick emerged from his office to find her making tea. "Do what?" "Pretend I'm not an inconvenience." He leaned against the counter, studying her with those unsettling silver eyes. "You're not an inconvenience. You're someone who risked everything to save a stranger's life." "I didn't do it for gratitude." "I know." Something shifted in his expression. "Why did you do it?" Michelle wrapped her hands around her mug. "Because it was right. Most people don't risk themselves for what's right. Most people aren't servers at vampire engagement parties." She met his gaze. "I didn't have anything to lose. Didn't you?" The question hung between them. Too intimate, too knowing. Michelle retreated to her room. But she thought about it all night. Frederick found her on the balcony at midnight. Michelle didn't turn when the glass door slid open behind her. She'd learned his footsteps by now, measured, unhurried, like someone who'd had centuries to perfect the art of not startling people. "You don't sleep much," he observed, joining her at the railing. "Neither do you." "I don't need to." He tilted his head toward the city, lights below. "You do." Michelle wrapped her arms tighter around herself. The November air bit through her sweater, but it felt honest. Real. Better than the climate-controlled perfection inside. "I sleep enough." Frederick didn't argue. That was the thing about him that unnerved her most. He never pushed, never demanded, just existed beside her like he had all the time in the world, which technically he did. "Tell me something about yourself," he said after a long silence. "There's nothing to tell." "Everyone has something to tell." "Not me. I work. I go home. That's it." "What did you do before waitressing?" Michelle's jaw tightened. "Different jobs. Same routine. And before that, college. Dropped out second year." "Why?" "Money." The lie came easily. It was cleaner than the truth, that she'd left because her roommate's boyfriend had made promises he didn't keep, and staying meant watching him choose someone else every single day. Frederick was quiet for a moment. Then, "I was engaged 4 times before Aaron." The shift caught Michelle off guard. She glanced at him. "Political arrangements," he continued, still watching the city. "Alliances between families. Strategic mergers disguised as romance." His expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "I learned early that love was a transaction. You offer what's valuable. You protect what's yours. And you never," he paused. "You never mistake companionship for connection." Michelle recognized that tone. The careful flatness of someone describing old wounds. "What happened to them?" she asked quietly. "They married other arrangements. Had the political children they were supposed to have. Played their roles." He turned to look at her then. "I envied them sometimes. They seemed content with the performance. And you weren't. I spent 200 years believing I was." His silver eyes held hers. "Then I realized contentment and loneliness aren't mutually exclusive." The admission hung between them, raw and uncomfortably familiar. Michelle looked away first. "People leave. That's what they do." "Yes. They make promises they don't keep. They say forever and mean until something better comes along." "Yes. And needing someone," her voice cracked slightly. "Needing someone just gives them the power to destroy you when they go." Frederick didn't offer empty reassurances. Didn't tell her she was wrong or damaged or too cynical. He simply said, "I understand." 2 words, but they landed like an earthquake. Michelle's hands gripped the railing hard enough to hurt. "My mom left when I was 6. Said she'd come back. Never did. My dad tried, he really tried, but he was so angry all the time. At her. At me for looking like her." She exhaled shakily. I've had 3 serious relationships. They all ended the same way, with me not being enough, or them not being worthy. That's just something people say to make you feel better.
No.
Frederick's voice was quiet but certain. It's something people say when they recognize that someone else's inability to value you says nothing about your worth. Michelle felt something crack inside her chest. Something she'd reinforced with years of careful distance and deliberate emotional detachment. She felt seen, and it absolutely terrified her. "I should go to bed," she said abruptly, already moving toward the door. Frederick didn't try to stop her, but as she disappeared inside, his words followed. "Thank you for telling me." Michelle didn't sleep that night. She lay in the dark, thinking about loneliness and understanding and the dangerous possibility that someone might actually mean the things they said. The headlines started on day 7. Michelle saw them on Frederick's tablet, left open on the kitchen counter. Vampire King's Mystery Woman. Social climber or something darker. The article featured a blurry photo of her entering the penthouse building, Frederick's hand at the small of her back. She should have looked away. She didn't. Sources close to the Warrington family suggest the assassination plot may have been an elaborate fabrication designed to position a human server into the king's inner circle. Ms. Morris's background reveals a pattern of short-term employment, and Michelle closed the tablet. Her hands were shaking. By evening, Frederick's phone was ringing constantly. She heard him in his office, voice measured but strained, explaining the same things over and over. "No, she's under my protection. Yes, I'm certain. The evidence is solid." But doubt had a way of spreading faster than truth. On day 8, Michelle overheard 2 of Frederick's security guards talking in the hallway, questioning his judgment. The council's delaying the ruling now. They want additional testimony. From who? The girl's the only witness.
Exactly.
And half the nobility thinks she's lying. What do you think? A pause. "I think Aaron Hall has very powerful friends. And the king just made himself vulnerable for a human nobody." Michelle pressed her back against her bedroom door, heart hammering. A human nobody. That's all she'd ever been. All she'd ever expected to be. And now Frederick was paying the price for her interference. She started packing at midnight. The duffel bag was almost full when Frederick appeared in her doorway. She didn't know how long he'd been standing there. Going somewhere? Michelle didn't look up. This was always temporary. The council hasn't ruled yet. The council is questioning your judgment because of me. Your own people are calling you vulnerable. She zipped the bag with more force than necessary. "I heard them, Frederick. I'm costing you your credibility. You saved my life. And now I'm ruining your reputation." She finally met his gaze. "This is what I do. I get involved, things fall apart, and everyone ends up worse for knowing me. So, I'm leaving before it gets worse." "It won't get worse." "You don't know that. I know Erin is desperate. I know she's manipulating public opinion because the truth doesn't favor her." Frederick stepped into the room. "I know you're running because you think you're not worth the cost." Michelle's throat tightened. "I'm not. You are. I'm a waitress who got in over her head. You're the vampire king. This," she gestured between them, "this was never going to work. I should never have kissed you. I should never have. Saved my life? Risked yours? Shown me that someone could act without expectation of reward." His voice dropped lower. "Michelle, you didn't manipulate your way into my life. You stumbled into it trying to do the right thing. And yes, it's costing me political capital. Yes, the nobility is questioning me. But I've spent centuries making decisions based on what people expected, what tradition demanded, what politics required." He moved closer. "You're the first real thing that's happened to me in a very long time. So no, you're not leaving. You can't stop me. I'm not stopping you. I'm asking you to stay." "Why?" The word came out broken. Why does it matter? Frederick's expression softened. Because you saved my life. Let me save yours. He paused. You don't have to earn your place here, Michelle. You already have one. Something inside her chest cracked wider. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe him. But belief required trust, and trust required vulnerability, and vulnerability had only ever gotten her hurt. 2 weeks, she whispered. You said 2 weeks. I lied. His lips curved slightly. I was always going to ask you to stay longer. Michelle's hands curled into fists. I don't know how to do this. Do what?
Stay.
Let someone. She couldn't finish. Then don't. Frederick's voice was gentle. Don't know how.
Don't have a plan.
Don't be certain. He stepped back, giving her space. Just don't leave tonight. Michelle looked at her packed bag. Then at him. One more night, she said finally. Frederick nodded. One more night. They both knew it was a lie. But it was the lie that bought her enough time to consider the truth. Michelle stopped saying good morning. She stopped emerging from her room when Frederick was home. Stopped making tea in the kitchen. Stopped pretending this arrangement was anything other than what it was. Temporary shelter she didn't deserve. When he left books on the coffee table, she ignored them. When he adjusted the thermostat, she opened a window. When he asked if she wanted dinner, she said she wasn't hungry. She was testing him. She knew she was testing him,
Pushing until he snapped.
until he got frustrated or annoyed or simply tired of trying, until he proved what she'd always known, that patience had limits and people always left. It took 3 days before he finally cornered her. Michelle was making coffee at 2 a.m. when Frederick appeared in the kitchen doorway. She didn't acknowledge him. You're angry, he said quietly. I'm fine. You're punishing me for something. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm just existing here until this is over. She kept her back to him, watching the coffee drip with aggressive focus. Michelle. Don't. She spun around, finally meeting his gaze. Don't act like you care what I do or don't do. Don't pretend this is anything other than obligation. You're keeping me here because you feel responsible, but we both know I'm too much work. Too difficult. Her voice cracked. Just say it. Tell me I'm exhausting to deal with, and you'll be relieved when I'm gone. Frederick's expression didn't change. Is that what you want me to say? I want you to be honest. All right. He leaned against the doorframe, utterly calm. You're scared. You're pushing me away because you think if you're difficult enough, I'll make the decision to leave for you. Then you can tell yourself you were right all along, that you're not worth the effort. Michelle's hands clenched. I'm not. You are. His silver eyes held hers. And I understand why. Someone taught you that love is conditional, that you have to be easy and agreeable and perfect to deserve it. So you're testing whether I'll prove them right. And I'm not going anywhere. The words landed like a blow. Michelle felt something hot and sharp behind her eyes. You don't know that. Everyone says that. Then I'll be different. You can't promise that. I can promise I'll try. Frederick pushed off the doorframe, but didn't move closer. You can build as many walls as you want, Michelle. Push me away. Ignore me. Convince yourself you're not worth the trouble. But I'm not trying to tear down your defenses. I'm not trying to fix you or change you or make you into someone easier to care about. He paused. I'm just letting you know there's a door, and it's open whenever you're ready. Michelle's throat closed. She'd spent years perfecting the art of being difficult, of making herself so prickly and complicated that people gave up before they got close enough to hurt her. And Frederick was refusing to play the game. I don't know how to stop, she whispered. Stop what? Expecting you to leave. Something softened in his expression. Then don't stop. Expect it. Wait for it. Prepare for it. He took a single step forward. I'll still be here. Michelle felt the wall inside her chest, The one she'd reinforced with every abandonment, every broken promise, every person who'd proven her unworthy, cracked down the center. Why? The question came out raw. Because you saved my life without asking for anything in return. Because you're brave enough to risk yourself for a stranger, but terrified to risk yourself for connection. Frederick's voice dropped lower. Because you deserve someone who stays. And I'm choosing to be that person. Michelle pressed her palms against the counter to keep herself upright. I'm going to disappoint you. Probably. His lips curved slightly. I'll disappoint you too. That's what being human, he paused. That's what being alive means. The coffee maker beeped. Neither of them moved. One more night, Michelle said finally, voice barely audible. Frederick nodded. One more night. But this time, she almost believed it might become more. The power went out on day 12. Michelle was reading in the living room when the lights flickered and died, plunging the penthouse into darkness. The city beyond the windows glowed like a distant galaxy, but inside, everything went still and quiet. Generator should kick in momentarily. Frederick's voice came from somewhere near his office. Building-wide outage. But the generator didn't kick in. After 10 minutes of silence, Frederick emerged with 2 candles. He set them on the coffee table without comment, then settled into the chair across from Michelle. The candlelight made everything softer. Less perfect. I should check the emergency stairs, Michelle said, but she didn't move. They're fine. Keycard locks fail open during power loss. Frederick leaned back, looking oddly relaxed. We're not trapped. Michelle nodded, still holding her book even though she couldn't read it anymore. They sat in companionable silence for a long moment. Do you ever miss it? Michelle asked finally. Being human? Frederick considered the question. I miss inconsequence. The ability to be anonymous. To make mistakes that don't affect thousands of people. He watched the candle flame dance. Immortality sounds romantic until you realize it means watching everyone you care about become memory. Until you understand that duty never ends, it just accumulates. That sounds lonely. It is. He met her gaze. I've spent centuries learning to be what people need. The decisive king. The political strategist. The symbol of stability. But symbols don't have doubts. They don't get tired.
They don't, he paused.
They don't feel much of anything after a while. Michelle understood that. The deliberate numbing. The careful distance. I used to think not feeling was the same as being safe, she said quietly. Like if I stopped expecting anything from people, they couldn't hurt me. Did it work? No. She set her book aside. It just made me hollow. I'd go through entire days without connecting to anything. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I told myself it was peaceful. Her voice dropped. It wasn't. It was just empty. Frederick was quiet for a moment. When did you stop believing you mattered? The question hit deeper than Michelle expected. Gradually, she said finally. Every time someone chose something else over me. Every time a promise turned out to be temporary. Eventually, I just accepted it. That I was the person people passed through on their way to something better. You're not. You don't know that. I know you risked everything to save a stranger. I know you'd rather run than burden someone with your presence. I know you've convinced yourself that being needed equals being a problem. Frederick leaned forward slightly. Michelle, you matter to me. It wasn't a plea. Wasn't a romantic declaration or a desperate promise. It was just truth, offered without expectation. Michelle felt her carefully constructed detachment crack wider. I don't know how to believe that. Then don't believe it yet. Just don't disbelieve it either. He gestured to the candles. Stay here. In this moment. Without planning your exit or preparing for disappointment. Just exist. Michelle looked at him. Really looked at him. Not the vampire king. Not the man offering protection. Just Frederick, sitting in candlelight, choosing to be honest. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I'm staying. Tonight. She pulled her knees up to her chest. Tell me something else. Something real. So he did. Frederick told her about the weight of making decisions that shaped centuries, about the exhaustion of being infallible, about the strange, painful relief of meeting someone who expected nothing from him except honesty. And Michelle told him about the small apartment she'd chosen specifically because no one visited, about the way she'd stopped decorating because permanence felt like a lie, about the quiet terror of realizing she might actually want to stay somewhere. The power came back 2 hours later. Neither of them moved to turn on the lights. They stayed in the candlelit space between armor and vulnerability, not quite touching, not quite separate. For the first time in years, Michelle wasn't planning her escape. She was just there. And it didn't feel dangerous. It felt like the beginning of something real. The council's ultimatum arrived on day 14. Michelle didn't see the letter, but she heard Frederick's voice through his office door. Cold, controlled fury barely contained. She's under my protection. That's not negotiable. A pause. I don't care what the optics suggest. The evidence is clear. Another pause, longer this time. You're asking me to choose between political convenience and someone's life. That's not a choice. When Frederick emerged 20 minutes later, his expression was carefully blank. The kind of blank that meant something had gone very wrong. Michelle was pretending to read on the couch. What did they say? He crossed to the bar, poured 2 fingers of whiskey, then set the glass down untouched. The council has concerns about my judgment, about the timing of Aaron's accusations and your proximity. They think I fabricated everything. Some of them do. Others believe Aaron's claims are legitimate, but think the political fallout of a public trial isn't worth it. His jaw tightened. They're suggesting a compromise. Aaron accepts exile. You accept distance. Michelle's stomach dropped. Distance. They want me to end your protection. Publicly. To demonstrate that I'm making decisions based on duty, not, he stopped. Not a human woman you barely know. Not someone I care about, Frederick corrected quietly. The admission hung between them, too enormous to touch. Michelle set her book down with shaking hands. And if you refuse? They question my fitness to rule. Suggest the throne needs someone more objective. It's political theater, mostly. But Aaron's family is powerful enough to make it real if they push. So they're forcing you to choose. Your position or me. Frederick finally looked at her. Yes. Michelle felt everything inside her go cold and sharp. This was it. The moment she'd been preparing for since that first night. The inevitable proof that she was too much trouble, too complicated, too costly to keep around. Then there's no choice. She stood, already moving toward her room. I'm leaving. Michelle.
No.
She spun around. I'm not doing this. I'm not letting you sacrifice everything because I couldn't mind my own business at a party. You have responsibilities. People who depend on you. A position that matters. And I'm just, her voice cracked. I'm just someone who got in over her head. Again. You saved my life. And now I'm ruining it. The words came out harsh. This is what I do, Frederick. I get involved, and everything falls apart. So I'm leaving before you lose your throne because of me. I don't want the throne if it means abandoning someone who needs me. You don't even know me. Not really. It's been 2 weeks. I know you're brave enough to risk yourself for a stranger. I know you'd rather destroy your own happiness than burden someone else with your existence. Frederick moved closer, voice dropping. I know you're terrified right now because this is exactly what you expected, that caring about you would cost me something. Michelle's throat closed. It is costing you something. Everything.
No.
His voice turned gentle. Everything would be spending another 200 years making decisions based on duty and tradition and what's politically expedient. Everything would be letting someone like you walk away because it's easier than fighting for something real. The council. The council has pressured me for centuries to marry for alliances, to execute enemies without trial, to prioritize power over principle. His silver eyes held hers. I've spent my entire existence sacrificing for duty. For once, his voice roughened. For once, I'd like to choose for love. The word detonated between them.
Love.
Michelle couldn't breathe. You don't love me. You can't. We barely. I'm choosing to, Frederick said simply. Every day you've been here, every wall you've built, every time you've pushed me away, I've been choosing you. And I'll keep choosing you, even if it costs me the throne, even if it costs me everything. That's insane. Probably. His lips curved slightly. But I've lived for centuries, Michelle. I know the difference between obligation and wanting.
And I want you to stay.
Not because you're convenient. Not because you saved my life. But because for the first time in centuries, I feel like a person instead of a position. Michelle felt tears burning behind her eyes. I'm going to ruin this. I'm going to panic and run and prove everyone right about me being too damaged. Then run.
Panic.
Be exactly who you are. Frederick didn't move closer, didn't try to touch her. I'll still be here when you're ready to come back. You're risking everything. No, he said quietly. I'm finally risking something that matters. Michelle woke up on day 15 with a strange, unsettling clarity. She wasn't afraid of Frederick leaving anymore. She was afraid of what it meant that he hadn't. She found him in his office, staring at legal documents with the kind of exhaustion that came from fighting battles on multiple fronts. The council meets tomorrow, he said without looking up. Final decision on Aaron's exile and my fitness to lead. Michelle leaned against the doorframe. And if they rule against you, then I deal with the consequences. He finally met her gaze, with or without the throne. Something shifted in Michelle's chest. Not the familiar panic urging her to run, but something sharper. Anger, maybe, at the council, at Aaron. At herself for almost letting fear win. I spent my entire life making myself small, she said quietly. Staying quiet, not asking for too much, disappearing before anyone could decide I wasn't worth keeping. She pushed off the doorframe, and it didn't protect me. It just made me invisible. Frederick set down his pen. I told myself I was being smart, strategic. That emotional distance was the same as emotional safety. Michelle moved into the room, but it wasn't safety. It was just slow suffocation. What changed? You did. The admission came easier than she expected. You didn't try to fix me or convince me I was wrong. You just existed beside me until I realized I didn't want to keep existing alone. Frederick stood slowly. Michelle. I'm not leaving. The words came out firm.
Certain.
Not because you asked me to stay. Not because I owe you. But because I'm tired of running from the one thing I actually want. Something vulnerable crossed his expression. And what do you want?
This. You.
The terrifying possibility that I might actually deserve to be happy. She took a breath. I want to stay, Frederick. Not for 2 weeks or one more night. I want to stay because choosing you is choosing myself. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything they'd both been too careful to say. The council might. Let them. Michelle's voice turned sharp. I'm done apologizing for taking up space, for mattering to someone, for being complicated and difficult and worth the effort. She met his gaze. You told me once that their leaving said nothing about my worth. Maybe it's time I started believing that. Frederick crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. His hands came up to frame her face, cool palms against warm skin, and for a moment he just looked at her like she was something he'd been searching for across centuries. "I love you," he said simply. "Not who you might become. Not some easier version.
You.
Exactly as complicated as you are." Michelle felt something break open inside her chest. Not the painful crack of walls collapsing, but the relief of finally letting go. "I don't know how to do this," she admitted. "The staying.
The trusting.
The believing I deserve this. Then we'll figure it out together." His thumb brushed her cheekbone. Badly, probably, but together. Michelle rose on her toes and kissed him, not to warn him or save him or prove anything to a room full of immortals, just because she wanted to. And for the first time in years, wanting something felt like enough. 6 months later, Michelle still woke up some mornings expecting it all to be temporary. But then Frederick would appear with tea, Earl Grey, exactly the right temperature, and the fear would fade back into background noise. The penthouse had changed. Books everywhere now, stacked on tables and tucked into corners. Throw blankets that actually got used. Photos on the refrigerator. Candid shots of them at the night market, at the botanical gardens after dark, laughing at something neither of them could remember. It looked lived in. It looked like home. "The council's requesting your presence at the winter gala," Frederick said one evening, reading through correspondence. "Apparently you've become a person of interest to the nobility." Michelle looked up from her laptop. Online classes, finally finishing that degree. Is that vampire speak for the human who wouldn't go away? More like the human who saved the king and then had the audacity to stay. His lips curved. "You've become somewhat legendary." Legendary sounds exhausting. "You can decline. I'll make excuses." Michelle considered. 6 months ago, she would have refused immediately. Would have found 17 reasons why she didn't belong in a room full of immortal politicians. Now, "I'll go," she said. "But I'm not wearing anything with a corset." Frederick's expression softened in that way that still made her chest tight.
Deal.
The gala was exactly as overwhelming as Michelle expected. Too many people, too much scrutiny, too many whispered conversations that stopped when she approached. But Frederick's hand stayed steady at her back. And when Lady Ashford, one of Aaron's former allies, made a pointed comment about temporary arrangements, Michelle didn't shrink. 6 months isn't temporary, she said evenly. It's a choice I make every morning, and will keep making. Frederick's fingers tightened slightly against her spine. Pride, maybe, or just recognition. Later, on the balcony where they'd first shared truths in the dark, Michelle leaned against the railing and breathed. "You did well tonight," Frederick said quietly. "I wanted to run 17 times. But you didn't."
No.
Michelle turned to face him. "I wanted to stay more." Something shifted in his expression, that rare, unguarded softness he only showed her. "I reduced my council obligations," he said. "Appointed advisors to handle some of the ceremonial duties. Stepped back from a few committees." Michelle's breath caught. "Frederick, I spent centuries being the throne. I'd like to spend the next few being a person." He reached for her hand. "With you. If you'll have me." "You're giving up." "I'm not giving up anything that matters. I'm choosing what I want." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Took me 200 years to figure out the difference." Michelle felt tears prick her eyes. Happy ones, which still surprised her. "I have hard days," she admitted. "Days when I wake up convinced this can't be real. That I'm not actually allowed to have this." "I know. And you stay anyway." "I stay anyway." Frederick pulled her closer. "Michelle, you saved my life. But you also saved me from a life that wasn't actually living. So yes, I stay. Every day. Even the hard ones." Michelle rested her forehead against his chest, listening to the steady absence of a heartbeat that somehow felt like home. "I love you," she said. Still strange to say out loud. Still true. "I know." His arms came around her. "You tell me every time you choose to stay." And that was the thing Michelle had finally learned. Love wasn't something you earned or deserved or proved yourself worthy of. It was something you chose. Every morning, every hard conversation, every moment of vulnerability that used to feel like weakness, but now felt like strength. She'd spent years building walls to protect herself from abandonment. But the only thing those walls protected her from was living. "Take me home," Michelle said softly. Frederick smiled. The real one, not the political one. "We're home." And for the first time in her entire life, Michelle believed him. Not because she'd stopped being afraid, but because she'd finally learned that being afraid and being loved weren't mutually exclusive. She could be both. She could be complicated and damaged and still worth staying for. She could be vulnerable without being destroyed. She could choose every single day to stay. And so she did. If Michelle's journey from fear to love moved you, don't let this story fade away. Tap the like button, subscribe so you never miss stories like this, and share it with someone. And in the comments, tell me, what moment hit you the hardest? Thanks for watching.